Welcome to Wonderful Stories, a place where imagination comes alive. So let's begin.
Part 1. The Brothers Who Were Never the Same. Aiden Ward was born 7 minutes after Adrian Ward. 7 minutes. That was all it took for fate to decide everything. Adrian came into the world first, silent, observant, his tiny fingers curled into fists as if he already understood that life was something to conquer. Aiden came crying. Their mother used to joke that Adrian looked like he owned the hospital, while Aiden looked like he was apologizing for being born. They were identical in face, but never in soul. 28 years later, Adrian Ward stood on the 52nd floor of Ward Enterprises, staring down at the city like it belonged to him. Because, in many ways, it did. Cancel their contract, Adrian said calmly. The executive across from him paled. Sir, that company has worked with us for 12 years. Adrian didn't even blink. They hesitated. That's all. That's enough. His voice was quiet, cold, absolute. The executive swallowed. Yes, Mr. Ward. When the man left, Adrian returned his attention to the window. People feared him. They called him ruthless, heartless, untouchable. He preferred efficient. Emotions were inefficient. Trust was inefficient. Love was catastrophic. His phone buzzed. One message. Aiden, are you alive, or did you sell your soul completely? Adrian stared at it for a moment. Then typed back. Adrian, busy. 3 dots appeared instantly. Aiden, you're always busy. Come see my new studio tonight. Adrian sighed. He should refuse. He had meetings, deadlines, investors. Instead, he typed, Adrian, 1 hour. Across the city, Aiden Ward sat cross-legged on the wooden floor of his tiny art studio, paint smeared across his hands. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows. The space smelled like oil paint and coffee and freedom. His phone buzzed. He grinned when he saw the reply. Still cares, he murmured. Even if Adrian would never admit it. Aiden stood and looked at his latest painting. It was unfinished. 2 identical figures stood side by side. One dressed in black, the other in white, but their faces were blank. Because Aiden still didn't know who they really were. That night, Adrian stepped into the studio. He froze. It was chaos. Paintings everywhere. Colors everywhere. Life everywhere. He hated it, and yet, he didn't. You look like you walked into a crime scene, Aiden said from behind him. Adrian turned, and there he was. His mirror. Same black hair. Same sharp jawline. Same eyes. But warmer. Alive. You're late, Aiden said. I said 1 hour. You're 20 minutes late. Adrian didn't reply. His gaze drifted to the paintings. They're good. Aiden blinked. Adrian never complimented anything. Thanks. Silence settled between them. Familiar. Comfortable. And heavy. You look tired, Aiden said softly. I'm fine. You always say that. Adrian's jaw tightened. He changed the subject. You should clean this place. You should relax. I don't relax. I know. Aiden studied him carefully. You're unhappy. Adrian's expression hardened. You're projecting. No. Aiden stepped closer. I'm recognizing. For a moment, Adrian said nothing. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and everything changed. His eyes darkened. What happened? Aiden asked. Adrian locked the screen. Nothing. But Aiden knew that tone. What happened, Adrian? Adrian hesitated, then said quietly, there's a scandal. Aiden frowned. What kind? Someone leaked internal documents. Are they real? Yes. Aiden's stomach dropped. That's bad. Yes. Silence. Then Adrian said something unexpected. I need to disappear. Aiden blinked. What? For 1 week. Aiden laughed nervously. You're joking. I'm not. Adrian, you're the CEO. You can't just disappear. Adrian looked at him, and said the words that would change everything. You can take my place. Aiden stared at him. What? You look exactly like me. This isn't funny. I'm serious. Adrian. 1 week. His voice was calm, controlled, desperate. No one would know. Aiden shook his head. This is insane. Adrian stepped closer. Please. Aiden froze. Adrian never said please. Never. I need time to find out who betrayed me, Adrian said quietly. And you want me to pretend to be you? Yes. Aiden laughed weakly. I can't run $1 billion company. You don't have to. People will notice. They won't. Adrian met his eyes. You're me. The words sent a strange chill through Aiden. He was. And he wasn't. This is a bad idea, Aiden whispered. Yes. Adrian agreed. But it's the only one. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Life-changing. Aiden looked at his brother. At the man who had carried the weight of the world alone. At the man who had never asked for anything. Until now. 1 week, Aiden said. Adrian exhaled. For the first time in years. He looked relieved. You'll stay here, Aiden added. In my studio. Adrian glanced around. At the mess. The color. The life. Fine. They stood there, facing each other. Mirror images. Opposites. Neither of them realized this decision would destroy everything. And give them everything. Part 2. The CEO who was too kind. Aiden Ward had never worn a suit that cost more than his rent. Now he was wearing one worth more than his entire studio. He stood in front of the massive glass doors of Ward Enterprises, staring at his reflection. He looked like Adrian. Perfect, cold, untouchable. He didn't feel like him. Sir. Aiden flinched. A woman stood beside him, holding a tablet. She was elegant, composed, and clearly used to power. Your first meeting begins in 5 minutes. First meeting, right. He nodded, trying to imitate Adrian's calm. Of course. She blinked. Just slightly. Adrian rarely acknowledged people that politely. Strike 1. Inside the executive elevator, Aiden's heart pounded so hard he thought it might break his ribs. He whispered to himself, walk less, talk less, stare more. That's what Adrian did. The doors opened. A long conference room stretched before him, filled with executives. They all stood the moment he entered. Fear, respect, submission. It made Aiden uncomfortable. Good morning, Mr. Ward. He gave a small nod and sat at the head of the table. Everyone waited. For him, he had no idea what to say. So he said the first thing that came to mind. Good morning. Another pause. They looked confused. Adrian never greeted people. Aiden quickly looked down at the documents in front of him. Numbers, charts, words he barely understood. God, Adrian was terrifying for handling this every day. One executive spoke carefully. We're prepared to follow your decision regarding the Kessler contract. Decision, right. Adrian had mentioned this. Cancel their contract. Because they hesitated. Aiden remembered asking why. Adrian had said, that's enough. Aiden swallowed. He looked around the table. At their nervous faces. At their fear. They've been loyal for 12 years, Aiden said slowly. The room froze. No one spoke. No one breathed. Adrian never used the word loyal. He continued. Give them another chance. Shock spread across every face. Sir. Someone asked. Everyone deserves a second chance. Silence. Then, yes, Mr. Ward. They obeyed. But they were watching him now. Carefully. Suspiciously. Strike 2. Meanwhile, across the city, Adrian sat in Aiden's studio. Alone. It was quiet. Too quiet. He hated it. He stared at the paintings. At the colors. At the emotions bleeding through every canvas. He didn't understand them. He didn't understand Aiden. His phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. Assistant, your 10 a.m. meeting with Victor Hale is confirmed. Victor Hale, Adrian's greatest rival. Dangerous. Brilliant. Unforgiving. Adrian's jaw tightened. Aiden would have to face him. He typed one message. Adrian, be careful. Back at Ward Enterprises, Aiden stepped into Adrian's office. It was massive, cold, perfectly organized. No life, no warmth. Just like Adrian. Sir, his assistant said, Victor Hale has arrived. Aiden's stomach dropped. Already. He nodded. Send him in. The assistant hesitated. Adrian usually said, let him wait. Strike 3. The door opened, and Victor Hale walked in. Aiden forgot how to breathe. Victor was tall. Tall enough to make Adrian's body feel smaller. His black hair was slicked back, his suit perfectly tailored. But it was his eyes that froze Aiden in place. Sharp, golden, predatory. Victor closed the door behind him. They stared at each other. Silence filled the room. Victor spoke first. Adrian. His voice was low, smooth, dangerous. Aiden forced himself to respond. Victor. Victor walked closer. Slow, controlled, like a hunter. Something was wrong. He could feel it. Victor stopped in front of the desk. Too close. His eyes searched Aiden's face. Carefully, intensely. You look different, Victor said. Aiden's heart slammed. Do I? Victor tilted his head, slightly. Yes. Silence. Aiden forced himself to stay calm. How unfortunate. Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Unfortunate, Victor repeated. His gaze dropped briefly to Aiden's hands. Adrian's hands were always still. Controlled. Aiden's fingers were tense. Alive. Victor noticed. Of course he did. Victor noticed everything. You're being kinder, Victor said softly. Aiden froze. Am I? Yes. Victor leaned slightly closer. His voice dropped. Adrian Ward doesn't give second chances. Ice ran down Aiden's spine. How did he know? Victor's eyes darkened. Adrian Ward doesn't greet people. Aiden's breath caught. Victor leaned even closer. Now they were inches apart. And Adrian Ward doesn't look at me like that. Aiden whispered. Like what? Victor's lips curved faintly. Like you're human. Silence. Electric. Dangerous. Victor straightened. He studied him one last time. Then turned toward the door. He paused. Without looking back, he said, "You're interesting," and left. Aiden collapsed into the chair. His entire body shaking. He almost got caught. That night, Victor sat alone in his penthouse. He poured himself a glass of whiskey. But didn't drink it. Instead, he stared at the city. And thought about Adrian Ward. No, not Adrian Ward. Something else. Someone else. He whispered to himself, "Who are you?" And for the first time in years, Victor Hale smiled. Meanwhile, Aiden lay awake in Adrian's bed. Unable to sleep, Victor's voice echoed in his mind. "You're human." No one had ever said that to Adrian. No one had ever looked at Adrian like that. Not with suspicion, not with curiosity, not with interest. Aiden touched his own chest. His heart was still racing. He whispered into the darkness, "This is a mistake," but deep down, he knew, it was already too late. Adrian. Part 3. The rival who watched too closely. Victor Hale did not believe in coincidences. He believed in patterns, in weaknesses, in cracks, and Adrian Ward had never cracked before. Not once, which was why Victor couldn't stop thinking about the way Adrian had looked at him yesterday. Warm, alive, human. It was wrong, and Victor needed to know why. The next morning, Aiden sat behind Adrian's desk, pretending to read financial reports. In reality, he was staring at the same paragraph for 10 minutes. His mind was elsewhere. Golden eyes, a dangerous smile. "You're interesting." A knock came. His assistant stepped inside. "Sir, Victor Hale is here again." Aiden's heart dropped. "Again?" "Yes. He says it's urgent." It wasn't. They both knew it wasn't. Victor Hale didn't do anything without purpose. Aiden hesitated. "Send him in." Victor entered like he owned the building. Like he owned the air. His eyes immediately found Aiden. Sharp, focused, hungry. "Adrian," Victor said. Aiden forced calm. "Victor." Victor didn't sit. He simply stood there, watching him. Silence stretched, uncomfortable, heavy. Finally, Victor spoke. "You approved the Kessler contract." Not a question. Aiden nodded. "Yes." Victor tilted his head. "Why?" Aiden chose honesty. They deserved another chance. Victor stared at him, long, intently, searching. "For 12 years, Victor said slowly, Adrian Ward believed loyalty was a liability." Aiden's throat tightened. People really did fear Adrian. Victor stepped closer. "And now you believe loyalty matters." Aiden met his gaze. "Yes." Victor's eyes flickered. Something unreadable. Something dangerous. "You've changed." Aiden didn't reply. Victor leaned down slightly, placing his hands on the desk. Caging him in. "Tell me," Victor said softly. "What happened to you?" Aiden's pulse raced. He could feel Victor's presence. His heat. His attention. It was overwhelming. "I evolved," Aiden said quietly. Victor's lips curved faintly. "I see." But his eyes said something else. "I don't believe you." Over the next few days, Victor kept coming back. Always with excuses. Contracts. Meetings. Negotiations. But they were all lies. Victor wasn't there for business. He was there for him. He watched everything. How Aiden spoke. How he listened. How he hesitated before making cold decisions. How he thanked employees. How he smiled. Adrian Ward never smiled. It fascinated Victor. And terrified Aiden. One evening, Victor appeared unannounced. "Again. Come with me," Victor said. Aiden blinked. "What? Dinner? That sounds like a personal invitation." Victor's gaze darkened. "It is." Aiden's breath caught. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't safe. "I don't mix business with personal matters," Aiden said carefully. Victor smiled faintly. "Since when?" Aiden froze. Victor leaned closer. "Or is this another thing that's changed?" Silence. Victor straightened. "I'll be waiting downstairs." And left. Like he knew Aiden would follow. Aiden stared at the door for a long time. He shouldn't go. This was dangerous, reckless, stupid. But he wanted to. He didn't know why. Maybe because Victor was the only person who saw him. Not Adrian. Him. Aiden stood. And followed. Dinner was quiet. Intimate. Too intimate. Victor had chosen a private restaurant overlooking the city. Golden lights stretched endlessly below them. "You're nervous," Victor said. Aiden forced a smile. "I'm not." Victor raised an eyebrow. "You're holding your fork too tightly." Aiden relaxed his hand immediately. Victor noticed everything. "Why do you keep watching me?" Aiden asked. Victor didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, "Why do you keep pretending?" Aiden's heart stopped. "Pretending?" Victor leaned forward, his voice soft. "Dangerous. Pretending to be someone you're not." Fear gripped Aiden's chest. Did he know? Was it over? Victor studied his face, then said, because the Adrian Ward I know. He reached out suddenly, and took Aiden's hand. Aiden froze. Victor's touch was warm, firm, real. Doesn't feel like this. Aiden's breath caught. Victor's thumb brushed lightly against his skin, sending electricity through his body. Victor whispered, he doesn't tremble. Silence. Neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. Victor's eyes softened. But you do. Something shifted. Something broke. Something began. Victor released his hand slowly, as if reluctant. Who are you? Victor asked quietly. Aiden didn't answer. He couldn't. Because if he did, everything would end. Victor smiled faintly. You don't have to tell me. And somehow, that was worse. That night, Aiden couldn't sleep. He sat in Adrian's apartment, staring at his reflection. He looked like Adrian, but Victor saw through him. Not completely, but enough. Enough to care. Enough to touch him. Enough to look at him like he mattered. Aiden whispered to himself. This isn't real. It couldn't be. Victor Hale was Adrian's enemy. His rival. His opposite. And yet, when Victor looked at him, Aiden felt seen. For the first time in his life. Across the city, Victor stood in his penthouse. Thinking about him. About his smile. His warmth. His trembling hands. Victor pressed his fingers to his lips. He could still feel him. He whispered into the empty room. You're not Adrian Ward. And then, softly, but I don't want you to be. Victor closed his eyes, realizing something dangerous, something irreversible. He wanted the lie, because he was already falling in love with the truth. Part 4. The touch that shouldn't exist. Aiden Ward was making a mistake. He knew it. He felt it in the way his heart raced every time Victor Hale walked into the room. He felt it in the way he started looking forward to their meetings. He felt it in the way Victor looked at him. Not like a rival, not like an enemy, but like someone he wanted. And that was the most dangerous part of all. It started with small things. Victor began visiting every day. Sometimes with business reasons, sometimes without any reason at all. They talked, not just about contracts, but about life. Do you ever regret it? Victor asked one afternoon. Aiden looked up from the desk. Regret what? This. Victor gestured around the office. The power. The isolation. Aiden hesitated. Adrian would say no. Adrian would say power was everything. But Aiden wasn't Adrian. Yes, he said quietly. Victor went still. I thought you might. Aiden frowned. Why? Victor smiled faintly. Because you look lonely. The words hit harder than they should have. Aiden looked away. Victor stepped closer. Loneliness changes people. His voice was soft, almost gentle. And you've changed more than anyone. Later that evening, it was raining. Hard. The city blurred behind sheets of water. Most employees had gone home. But Aiden was still in the office. Alone. Or so he thought. You're still here. Aiden turned. Victor stood in the doorway. His suit slightly damp, his hair darker from the rain. You too, Aiden said. Victor walked inside slowly. I had dinner nearby. He paused. I wondered if you were still working. Aiden's heart beat faster. You didn't have to come. I know. But Victor didn't leave. Instead, he walked to the window. Standing beside him, close, too close, they watched the rain together. Silence settled between them, heavy, charged. Why are you different? Victor asked suddenly. Aiden's breath caught. I told you. I don't believe you. Victor turned to face him. His eyes searching, demanding. Something happened to you. Aiden couldn't answer. Victor stepped closer. Their shoulders brushed. Electricity shot through Aiden's body. Victor noticed. Of course he did. His voice dropped to a whisper. You don't push me away. Aiden's voice trembled. Should I? Victor's eyes darkened. Yes. But neither of them moved. Victor lifted his hand slowly, giving Aiden time to stop him. Aiden didn't. Victor's fingers touched his wrist. Warm, gentle, dangerous. Aiden's breath hitched. You're warm, Victor murmured. Adrian Ward was always cold. Victor's hand slid up slightly. To his arm, his touch featherlight, as if he was afraid Aiden would disappear. You're real, Victor whispered. Aiden's heart felt like it might explode. This was wrong. This was all wrong. He should stop this. He should tell the truth. He should walk away, but he couldn't, because for the first time, someone was touching him like he mattered. Victor's hand reached his face, his fingers brushing his cheek. Aiden closed his eyes. Just for a second, Victor inhaled sharply. You have no idea what you're doing to me, Victor said softly. Aiden whispered, then stop me. Victor didn't. Instead, he leaned in, slowly, carefully, giving Aiden every chance to pull away. Aiden didn't. Their lips met, soft, tentative, and everything changed. Aiden's mind went blank. Victor's hand moved to the back of his neck. Holding him, not forcing, just keeping him there. The kiss deepened, slowly, carefully, like something fragile, like something precious, like something real. Aiden's hands gripped Victor's shirt, pulling him closer. He didn't want this to end. He didn't want to be Adrian. He didn't want to lie. He just wanted this moment. Victor pulled back slightly, their foreheads touching, their breaths mingling. "Whoever you are," Victor whispered, "I don't want you to stop." Tears burned behind Aiden's eyes. Because Victor wasn't talking to Adrian. He was talking to him. And that made everything worse. That night, Aiden returned to the studio. Adrian was there, sitting on the floor, surrounded by paintings. He looked up when Aiden entered. "You're late." Aiden couldn't speak. Adrian frowned. "What happened?" Aiden whispered. "I kissed him." Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Adrian's expression darkened. "Victor Hale." Aiden nodded. Adrian stood slowly, his voice cold. "You forgot who you are." Aiden's chest tightened. "No." Adrian stepped closer. "You forgot who he loves." The words felt like a knife. He loves Adrian Ward, not Aiden, not the artist, not the real him, just the lie. Aiden's voice broke. "I know." Adrian looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, he saw it. His brother was in love, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Across the city, Victor stood alone in his apartment, touching his lips, remembering. He whispered into the darkness, "I should end this," but he didn't want to. Because for the first time in his life, Victor Hale didn't want power. He wanted a person, and he was already too deep to escape. Part 5. The lie that felt like love. After the kiss, nothing was the same. And yet, everything continued, like they had both silently agreed not to question it, not to name it, not to break it. Victor didn't mention the kiss the next day, or the day after that, but he stayed close, closer than before. He came to Adrian's office under the excuse of business, but their conversations drifted away from contracts, towards something softer, towards something real. "You're distracted," Victor said one afternoon. Aiden looked up from the laptop he wasn't reading. "I could say the same about you." Victor smiled faintly. "That would be a lie." Aiden's chest tightened at the word lie. Victor studied him. "You didn't sleep." It wasn't a question. Aiden sighed. "Number." Victor stepped closer. His hand reached out, then stopped, like he was holding himself back. "Neither did I," Victor admitted. Silence filled the space between them. Heavy, full, dangerous. Their next kiss happened 3 days later. Victor had invited him to dinner again. This time, Aiden didn't hesitate. He went. He wanted to go. Dinner turned into wine. Wine turned into quiet conversation. Conversation turned into silence. And silence turned into longing. "You should stop looking at me like that," Aiden whispered. Victor's voice was low. "Like what?" "Like I matter." Victor's eyes softened. "You do." The words broke something inside Aiden. Because Victor didn't know the truth. He didn't know he was loving the wrong person. Or maybe, the right one. Victor reached for him. Slow, careful. Their lips met again. Deeper this time, more certain. Victor's hand slid into Aiden's hair. Holding him, anchoring him, like he never wanted to let go. Aiden melted into him, into the warmth, into the safety, into the lie. Soon, it became routine. Victor would visit. They would talk. They would touch. They would kiss. Sometimes they didn't even speak. They just existed together. And for the first time in his life, Aiden felt wanted. Not as Adrian, not as the CEO, but as himself. Or at least, the version of himself Victor saw. Meanwhile, Adrian watched from a distance. He saw the way Aiden smiled more. The way he left the studio at night. The way he came back with lips slightly swollen. Eyes soft, heart exposed. "You're in love," Adrian said one night. Aiden froze. "I don't know what you mean." Adrian's voice was calm. "You do." Aiden looked down. "He doesn't love me." Adrian stepped closer. "He thinks you're me." Silence. Painful. Honest. "That's the problem," Aiden whispered. Adrian studied him. For once, he didn't look cold. He looked human. "Then tell him." Aiden's head snapped up. "What?" "Tell him the truth." Aiden laughed weakly. "And lose him." Adrian didn't answer. Because they both knew the truth. Yes, he would lose him. But Victor wasn't blind. He noticed things. Small things. Details that didn't make sense. Adrian Ward didn't drink cheap wine. Adrian Ward didn't paint. Adrian Ward didn't smile like that. Adrian Ward didn't kiss like he was afraid of losing something. Victor began asking questions. Quietly. Carefully. He had people watching. Investigating. Following. He told himself it was business. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. It was personal, because Victor Hale was falling in love, and he didn't even know with who. One night, Victor stood behind Aiden, watching him. They were in Adrian's apartment, the city glowing outside. Victor wrapped his arms around his waist. Aiden froze, then relaxed into him. Victor rested his chin on his shoulder. "Stay tonight," Victor whispered. Aiden's breath caught. Victor. Victor's arms tightened slightly. "Just stay." Aiden turned in his arms. Their faces inches apart. "You don't even know who I am," Aiden said softly. Victor smiled. "Yes, I do." He touched Aiden's cheek. "You're the man I want." Tears burned Aiden's eyes. Because Victor was wrong. So painfully wrong. But Aiden nodded anyway. "Okay." That night, Aiden stayed. They didn't do anything more than hold each other. Victor's arms around him. Protective. Possessive. Gentle. Aiden fell asleep listening to Victor's heartbeat. Wishing it could last forever. Knowing it wouldn't. The next morning, Victor woke up first. Aiden was still asleep beside him. Peaceful. Beautiful. Real. Victor brushed a strand of hair from his face. And whispered, "Who are you?" Because the more he loved him, the more he knew. This wasn't Adrian Ward, and the truth was coming. Whether they were ready or not. Part 6. The truth that shattered everything. Victor Hale found the truth on a Tuesday morning. It didn't come from a dramatic confession. It didn't come from a mistake. It came from a photograph. A simple photograph. His investigator placed it on the desk without a word. Victor stared at it. Two men. Identical. Same face. Same body. Same eyes. But different souls. "This is impossible," Victor said quietly. The investigator spoke carefully. "They're twin brothers. Adrian Ward and Aiden Ward." Aiden Ward. Victor's chest tightened. "He's an artist," the investigator continued. "No business involvement. No corporate authority. They switched places 3 weeks ago." Switched places. The words echoed like a gunshot. Victor's voice turned cold. "Why?" "Unknown. But the real Adrian Ward has been living in Aiden's studio." Silence filled the room. Victor dismissed the investigator. He needed to be alone. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The warmth. The kindness. The trembling. The kiss. It was never Adrian. It was him. Aiden. And it was all a lie. Across the city, Aiden stood in the office. Waiting. Victor had asked to see him. His voice had sounded different. Cold. Distant. Wrong. Aiden's stomach twisted. He knew. Somehow. He knew. The door opened. Victor walked in. He didn't smile. He didn't soften. He didn't look at Aiden like he loved him. He looked at him like a stranger. "Victor, stop." Aiden froze. Victor's voice was sharp. Deadly. "What's your name?" Aiden's heart stopped. "Adrian." Victor slammed the photograph onto the desk. Two identical faces stared back at him. "Don't lie to me." Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Victor's voice broke slightly. "What is your name?" Aiden couldn't breathe. He couldn't run. He couldn't hide. "Aiden." The word shattered everything. Victor closed his eyes, like it physically hurt to hear it. "How long?" Victor whispered. 3 weeks. Victor laughed, but there was no humor in it. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of lies. 3 weeks of kisses. 3 weeks of love. Was any of it real? Victor asked. Aiden stepped closer. "Yes." Victor stepped back. "Don't." The word cut deep. "It was real for me," Aiden said desperately. Victor's eyes filled with anger. "And what about me?" Aiden had no answer. Because Victor had loved Adrian. Not Aiden, or so he believed. "You manipulated me," Victor said. "No, you lied to me." Aiden's voice broke. "I had to." Victor's voice rose. "You had a choice." Silence. Victor's chest rose and fell. His voice dropped. Cold. Controlled. "Get out." Aiden froze. "Victor, get out." Aiden's vision blurred with tears. "Please." Victor turned away, unable to look at him. "If you stay, I will say things I can't take back." The words destroyed him. Aiden stood there for a moment, hoping, praying, begging, but Victor never turned around. So Aiden left, and with every step, his heart broke. That night, Aiden returned to the studio. Adrian was there, waiting. He saw Aiden's face, and understood immediately. "He knows." Aiden nodded, silent tears falling. Adrian said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Aiden collapsed to the floor, his body shaking. "He hates me." Adrian's voice was quiet. "No." Aiden laughed bitterly. "He told me to leave." Silence. Adrian sat beside him, not as a CEO, not as a powerful man, but as a brother. "I told you this would happen." Aiden whispered. "I know." And somehow, that made it worse. Meanwhile, Victor stood alone in his apartment. Everything felt empty. The silence was unbearable. He looked at his phone. At Aiden's contact. He should delete it. He should erase him, he should forget him, but he couldn't, because every memory felt real. Every touch, every kiss, every moment. Victor slammed his phone onto the table. Anger filled his chest, not just at Aiden, at himself, for falling in love with a lie. He whispered into the darkness, "I loved you," and that was the worst part. Because he still did. The next morning, Aiden packed his things. The week was over. The lie was over. He returned the suits, the watches, the identity. He became himself again. Just Aiden Ward, the struggling artist, the nobody. And Victor Hale belonged to Adrian Ward, not him, never him. Aiden picked up his paintbrush, but his hands trembled, because for the first time, he had something to lose. And he already lost it. Part 7. The Man Who Couldn't Forget. Victor Hale tried to forget him. He buried himself in work, meetings, contracts, expansion, power, everything he had relied on his entire life. Everything that had protected him. Everything that had kept him from feeling. But it wasn't enough, because everywhere he looked, he saw Aiden, not Adrian. Aiden, the way he smiled softly when he was nervous. The way he hesitated before making cruel decisions. The way he kissed like he was afraid it would be taken away. Victor clenched his jaw. It had been 3 weeks since the truth came out. 3 weeks since he told him to leave. 3 weeks since he broke his own heart. "Sir." Victor looked up. His assistant stood in front of his desk. "You have a meeting with Adrian Ward." Victor's chest tightened. Adrian Ward, the real one, not Aiden, not him. Victor's voice was calm. "Send him in." The door opened, and Adrian walked inside, cold, perfect, untouchable. Victor stared at him, studied him. This was the man he had hated for years. His rival, his equal, and yet, he felt nothing. No anger, no curiosity, no warmth, nothing. Adrian spoke first. "You know." Not a question, a statement. Victor nodded. "Yes." Silence. Adrian's voice remained steady. "You were never meant to find out." Victor laughed quietly. "I think I was." Adrian watched him carefully. Victor leaned back in his chair. "You and your brother." He paused. "You're nothing alike." Adrian didn't react, but Victor saw it. A flicker. Small. Human. Victor asked, "Did you know he loved me?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Yes." Victor closed his eyes briefly. Pain spread through his chest. Adrian continued, "But you loved Adrian Ward." Victor's eyes snapped open. "No." The word came out instantly. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Adrian froze. Victor leaned forward, his voice quiet, certain. "I never loved you." Silence filled the room. Adrian stared at him. Victor whispered, "I loved him." Across the city, Aiden sat in his studio. The sunlight felt colder now. The colors looked dull. He hadn't painted anything in weeks. His canvas remained blank. Just like him, he picked up his phone. Victor's contact was still there. He hadn't deleted it. He couldn't. His thumb hovered over the screen. He wanted to call. He wanted to hear his voice. He wanted to know if any of it mattered. But he didn't, because Victor had told him to leave. And Aiden had no right to come back. Victor stood at the window after Adrian left. His heart felt heavy. Adrian's final words echoed in his mind. "You hurt him." Victor closed his eyes. He knew. God, he knew. Every night, he remembered Aiden's face. The way it fell when Victor told him to leave. The way he looked broken. The way he looked like he had lost everything. Victor whispered to himself, "I was cruel, not because Aiden lied, but because Victor cared, and caring made him weak. Or at least, that's what he used to believe." That evening, Victor did something reckless. Something stupid. Something human. He went to the art district. He didn't know why. He just walked. Until he saw it. Aiden's studio. The lights were on. Victor's heart pounded. He shouldn't be here. He had no right. But his feet moved anyway. He stood outside the window. And saw him. Aiden stood in front of a blank canvas. Paintbrush in hand. Frozen. Lost. Victor's chest ached. He had never seen him look so empty. Aiden lifted the brush. His hand trembled. Then stopped. He couldn't do it. He dropped the brush. And turned away. Victor couldn't take it anymore. He knocked. Aiden froze. Slowly. Carefully. He walked to the door. And opened it. Their eyes met. Silence. Shock. Pain. Hope. Fear. Everything at once. Victor's voice was barely a whisper. "Aiden." Aiden's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you here?" Victor didn't have an answer. Not a good one. Not a logical one. Just an honest one. "Because I couldn't forget you." Silence broke. Aiden's voice shook. "You told me to leave." Victor nodded. "I know." Aiden's chest rose and fell. Why did you come back? Victor stepped closer. Slow, careful, terrified. Because I realized something. He stopped in front of him. Close enough to touch. But he didn't. Not yet. Victor's voice broke. I never loved Adrian Ward. Aiden's breath caught. Victor met his eyes. Soft. Honest. I loved you. And for the first time since everything fell apart, hope returned. Part 8. The choice between truth and fear. Aiden couldn't breathe. Victor's words echoed in his chest. I loved you. Not Adrian. Not the lie. Him. Aiden stared at him, searching his face. Searching for deception. For hesitation. For doubt. He found none. You're lying, Aiden whispered. Victor flinched. The reaction was small, but real. I deserve that, Victor said quietly. Aiden laughed bitterly. You told me to leave like I meant nothing. Victor's jaw tightened. I told you to leave because you meant everything. Silence. Aiden's eyes filled with tears. That doesn't make sense. Victor stepped closer. I was angry. His voice dropped. Not because you weren't Adrian. He hesitated. But because you made me love you without permission. The words hit harder than anything else. Aiden's voice trembled. I didn't mean to. I know. Victor looked at him like he was fragile. Like he was precious. Like he was afraid to lose him again. That's what made it real. Aiden turned away. He couldn't look at him. Because looking at him made him weak. You should go, Aiden said. Victor didn't move. Aiden, please. His voice broke. I just got used to living without you. That was a lie. He hadn't lived. He had existed. Victor knew it. I don't want to hurt you again, Aiden whispered. Victor's chest tightened. He understood. He had broken something delicate. Something irreplaceable. And now he had to face the consequences. Victor spoke carefully. I won't ask you to forgive me. Silence. I won't ask you to trust me. Aiden's hands trembled. But I will tell you the truth. Victor stepped closer. Close enough that Aiden could feel his warmth. I love you. The words were quiet, gentle, terrifying. Aiden squeezed his eyes shut. Stop. Victor didn't. I tried to forget you. His voice cracked. I tried to hate you. Aiden's heart shattered all over again. But I couldn't. Victor reached out, then stopped himself, respecting the distance, respecting him. Because you were never my rival, Victor whispered. You were my home. Tears fell down Aiden's face. Because that was everything he had ever wanted to hear. And everything he was afraid to believe. Meanwhile, Adrian stood outside the studio. Watching. He hadn't meant to follow Victor. But he had. Because Aiden was his brother. Because he cared. He saw Victor through the window. Standing there. Vulnerable. Honest. Human. Adrian had never seen Victor Hale look like that. Victor wasn't a predator anymore. He was just a man in love. Adrian turned away. Quietly. Because this was no longer his place. This was Aiden's choice. Inside the studio, Aiden wiped his tears. How do I know this is real? Victor answered immediately. You don't. Honest. Painfully honest. Victor continued. But I'm here. He swallowed. And I'm not leaving. Silence. Heavy. Aiden turned back to face him. His eyes red. Broken. Hopeful. You really love me. Victor stepped closer. This time, he didn't stop. He gently held Aiden's face. His touch soft. Reverent. Yes. Aiden's breath trembled. Not Adrian. Victor shook his head. Never Adrian. He leaned closer. Their foreheads touched. I love the man who paints. Aiden's heart raced. I love the man who trembles. His voice dropped. I love the man who lied to me. A tear slid down Aiden's cheek. Victor wiped it away. And I love the man who broke my heart. Silence. Soft. Fragile. Real. Victor whispered. I love Aiden Ward. The words shattered every wall Aiden had built. Because Victor chose him. Not the power. Not the mask. Just him. Aiden leaned forward. Slowly. Carefully. Terrified. Hopeful. And kissed him. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't rushed. It was soft. Forgiving. Healing. Victor froze for a second. Then kissed him back. Like he had been waiting his entire life. His hands wrapped around Aiden. Holding him close. Not to possess him, but to protect him. Aiden melted into his arms. And for the first time, he didn't feel like a lie. He felt real. When they pulled apart, Victor rested his forehead against his. I'm sorry. Aiden smiled weakly. Me too. Victor let out a soft breath. Relieved. Grateful. In love. Outside, the city lights glowed. Inside, two broken people found each other again. Not as enemies. Not as rivals. But as themselves. Part 9. The world that tried to tear them apart. Love, Aiden learned, was quiet. It lived in small touches. In the way Victor's hand found his without looking. In the way Victor stood closer to him than necessary. In the way Victor said his name. Not Adrian, never Adrian, always Aiden. But the world was not quiet. The world was cruel, and the world was watching. It happened on a Monday morning. Adrian called him, Aiden. His brother's voice was calm. Too calm. Aiden's stomach tightened. What happened? A long pause. It's public. The words turned his blood cold. What is? Adrian didn't soften it. The truth. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. The media knows about the switch. Aiden's hand trembled. How? Someone leaked it. Aiden already knew the answer. The scandal. The betrayal. It was never over. Everyone thinks you manipulated Ward Enterprises, Adrian continued. They think you pretended to be me for power. Aiden laughed bitterly. Power. He had never wanted power. He had only wanted love. This will destroy your reputation, Adrian said quietly. Aiden whispered, I never had one. By noon, his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Unknown numbers, messages, news alerts. He saw the headlines. Ward Enterprises scandal. CEO replaced by secret twin. Imposter brother fools billion-dollar company. WHO is the real Ward. Aiden felt sick. He wasn't a person. He was a scandal. A lie. A mistake. Victor saw it too. He was in the middle of a meeting when his assistant rushed in. Sir, you need to see this. Victor read the headline. His expression didn't change, but his voice did. Cold. Dangerous. Cancel everything, sir. Everything. He stood. Because there was only one thing that mattered. Aiden. Aiden sat alone in his studio. The curtains closed. The lights off. He felt small. Exposed. Broken. He heard the door open. He didn't move. Go away, Aiden whispered. The footsteps didn't stop. Victor's voice answered. No. Aiden closed his eyes. They're calling me a fraud. Victor stepped closer. They're wrong. Aiden laughed weakly. I lied to an entire company. Victor's voice was firm. You protected your brother. Aiden looked at him. They'll destroy you too. Victor didn't hesitate. I don't care. Aiden's chest tightened. You should. Victor stepped in front of him. Close. Solid. Certain. I've spent my entire life protecting things that didn't matter. He lifted Aiden's chin gently. But you do. Aiden's vision blurred. Victor. Victor's voice softened. You're not alone. But the world wasn't finished. Reporters gathered outside. Cameras. Questions. Accusations. They wanted a statement. They wanted blood. They wanted him. Aiden stayed inside. Afraid. Victor didn't. He walked outside. Directly into the storm. Microphones were shoved toward him. Mr. Hale, what do you think about the Ward scandal? Were you aware of the twin? Were you manipulated too? Victor's voice cut through the chaos. Clear. Sharp. Absolute. I was not manipulated. Silence fell. Every camera focused on him. Victor continued. I knew Adrian Ward. He paused. And I knew Aiden Ward. The world held its breath. Victor spoke the truth. Aiden Ward is not a fraud. Aiden watched from inside, his heart pounding. Victor's voice didn't waver. He is the most honest man I've ever met. Gasps spread through the crowd. Victor didn't stop. He didn't do this for power. He said the words that changed everything. He did it for love. Aiden's breath caught. Victor looked directly at the cameras. At the world. At everyone. And I would choose him. Silence. Absolute silence. Every time. Inside the studio, Aiden cried. Not from pain. But from something else. Something fragile. Something terrifying. Hope. Victor returned inside. He closed the door. Blocking out the world. Blocking out the noise. Blocking out everything except them. You didn't have to do that, Aiden whispered. Victor walked to him. Yes, I did. Aiden shook his head. You'll lose everything. Victor smiled softly. No. He touched Aiden's face. I already found everything. Aiden broke. He wrapped his arms around him. Holding him. Clinging to him. Victor held him back. Stronger. Safer. Certain. I'm here, Victor whispered. I'm not going anywhere. That night, Adrian visited. He stood in the doorway. Watching them. His identical face. His opposite soul. You chose him, Adrian said to Victor. Victor didn't hesitate. Yes. Adrian looked at Aiden. Are you happy? Aiden answered honestly. Yes. Adrian nodded. For the first time in his life. He smiled. Small. Real. Good. Because power had never made Adrian happy. But love. Love had saved his brother. The scandal didn't disappear overnight. The world didn't suddenly become kind. But it didn't matter anymore. Because Aiden wasn't alone. Victor stood beside him, not as a rival, not as an enemy, but as his choice, his truth, his love, and this time, there were no lies between them. Part 10. The man he chose forever. The world didn't end. It just changed. The scandal didn't disappear, but it stopped screaming. Headlines moved on. People found new victims, new stories, new lies. But Aiden Ward remained, not as a CEO, not as a fraud, not as a twin, just as himself. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. 3 months later, Aiden stood in his studio. Sunlight poured through the tall windows. Dust floated in the air. The canvas in front of him was no longer blank. It was alive. Colors blended together. Warm, soft, hopeful. He hadn't painted in so long. Not since everything broke. Not since everything healed. Not since Victor. Aiden smiled faintly. Because Victor had never left. You're staring again. Aiden turned. Victor stood behind him. His suit was still expensive. Still perfect. But his eyes were softer now. Human. Aiden laughed quietly. You're distracting. Victor walked closer. He wrapped his arms around Aiden's waist, resting his chin on his shoulder. Good. Aiden leaned back into him. Comfortable. Safe. Home. Victor looked at the painting. It's beautiful. Aiden hesitated. It's not finished. Victor smiled. It doesn't need to be. Aiden turned in his arms. You haven't even asked what it is. Victor touched his face gently. I know what it is. Aiden blinked. You do. Victor nodded. It's how you feel. Aiden's chest tightened. Because Victor was right. It wasn't a landscape. It wasn't abstract. It was emotion. It was love. It was him. Life didn't magically become perfect. Victor was still Victor Hale. Powerful. Feared. Respected. But now, he was also the man who brought Aiden coffee in the morning. The man who fell asleep beside him. The man who held his hand when no one was looking. The man who loved him without conditions. Without masks. Without lies. One evening, they walked through the city together. No bodyguards. No assistants. Just them. Victor's hand brushed against his. Then held it, naturally, like it belonged there. Aiden looked at him. Are you sure? Victor frowned slightly. About what? Aiden swallowed. About me. Victor stopped walking. He turned to face him fully. His expression serious. Certain. I've never been more sure of anything. Aiden's heart raced. You lost business because of me. Victor shrugged. Business can be rebuilt. Aiden's voice softened. You lost your reputation. Victor stepped closer. You gave me something better. Aiden whispered. What? Victor touched his chest. You. Silence. Soft. Sacred. Victor continued. I spent my entire life surrounded by powerful people. He touched Aiden's face. But you were the only real one. A tear slid down Aiden's cheek. Victor wiped it away. I didn't choose Adrian Ward. He leaned closer. I chose Aiden. Their foreheads touched. I will always choose Aiden. Months later, Aiden held his first art exhibition. He didn't expect many people to come. He didn't expect anyone to care. He was wrong. The gallery was full. People stood in front of his paintings. Studying them, feeling them, understanding them. For the first time, they saw him. Not the scandal. Not the twin. The artist. Victor stood in the corner. Watching him. Not the paintings. Him. Adrian stood beside Victor. His identical face calm. He looks different, Adrian said. Victor nodded. He is. Adrian glanced at him. You love him. Victor answered simply. Yes. Adrian was silent for a moment. Then he said something he had never said before. Thank you. Victor frowned. For what? Adrian looked at his brother. Smiling. For loving him when I couldn't. Victor didn't reply. He didn't need to. Because he would. Always. Later that night, the gallery was empty. Only Aiden and Victor remained. Aiden stood in the center of the room. Surrounded by his heart. Victor walked toward him. You were amazing. Aiden laughed nervously. I was terrified. Victor took his hand. But you did it. Aiden squeezed his fingers. I couldn't have done it without you. Victor shook his head. You could have. Aiden smiled softly. Maybe. Victor reached into his pocket. Aiden blinked. What are you doing? Victor didn't answer. He just looked at him. Vulnerable. Honest. Terrified. Victor Hale. Terrified. I spent my entire life choosing power, Victor said quietly. He took a small box out. Aiden's breath stopped. But you taught me to choose love. He opened it. A simple ring. Beautiful. Real. Victor's voice trembled. Aiden Ward. He stepped closer. You were never my rival. Closer. You were never my mistake. Closer. You were my truth. He whispered the words that mattered most. Choose me. Aiden broke. Tears fell freely. Yes. Aiden whispered. Victor's breath hitched. Yes. Aiden repeated. Victor slid the ring onto his finger. Their hands trembled. Their hearts raced. Their souls aligned. Victor kissed him. Not as a CEO. Not as a powerful man. but as someone in love. Someone human. Someone his. And in the end, Victor Hale didn't choose the powerful CEO. He didn't choose the perfect identity. He didn't choose the mask. He chose the artist. He chose the lie that became the truth. He chose the man who taught him how to feel. He chose Aiden Ward, not once, not twice, but forever. The end. If you like the story, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications for more amazing stories.